This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Oh, hi there. Folks, it's finally over. We've done it. One of the most sought after pieces of lost media over the past year and a half has been found. The Shrek I Feel Good test animation. This is a monumental achievement, a true testament to the collective willpower of lost media enthusiasts. In this video, I'm going to cover the entire history of the search. Though I've talked about some of this information in other videos, I think it's all necessary to give a full picture of this exciting journey. Enjoy. Shrek is infamous for having a rough development. DreamWorks was founded in 1994 by Steven Spielberg, David Geffen, and Jeffrey Katzenberg after he left Disney. Years before founding the company, Spielberg bought the rights to make a movie based on the book Shrek. In the 26-page children's book, Shrek is kicked out of the swamp by his parents to find his own place in the world. He encounters a witch who tells him his fortune. He's gonna meet a donkey who will take him to battle a knight, and he will marry a princess, even uglier than he is. Along the way, he cooks a pheasant with just his glare, fights a dragon, has a nightmare of children being nice to him, meets Donkey, defeats the knight, and marries the princess. The book is odd to say the least, but it has some real gems in it. I don't know why, but this page is just hilarious to me. It reminds me of one of those memes of two unrelated fictional characters meeting. But this page here contains the single best line in all of fiction. Fat raindrops began sizzling on Shrek's hot knob. So if you didn't know that Shrek was based on a book, that's understandable. The movie we got is really nothing like it, but that wasn't due to a lack of trying. Shrek entered pre-production in 1995 with this version of the character in mind. The goal was to create a dark, low-budget animated movie. A team of 40 was assembled to get the movie started, led by a group known as the Propeller Heads. Rob Letterman, Lauren Soman, Andy Weisler, and Jeffrey Abrams, better known today as J.J. Abrams. Man, could you imagine starting your career with Shrek? Everything's downhill from there. Around this time, casting had begun, and after Nicolas Cage, of all people, turned down the role of Shrek, the legendary Chris Farley was brought on to voice the titular character. The team spent about a year and a half in research and development, creating a hybrid animation using miniature sets as the background and motion capture for character movements. And you have to remember, these were the early days of computer animation. Toy Story had just come out in 1995, so DreamWorks was really experimenting and trying to get on the cutting edge of animation. A test was shown to the higher-ups at DreamWorks in May of 1997. Now, over the years, there have been many things said about the resulting test animation. One staffer said it looked like a guy dressed in a full-body character costume who walks around a theme park, shaking hands with little kids. And the most famous quote about this animation comes from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who bluntly said, "It looked terrible. It didn't work, it wasn't funny, and we didn't like it." Even though the test didn't work out and the entire team lost their jobs, it made DreamWorks rethink the entire concept of the movie. Instead of adapting the book more accurately, they would use the book as a jumping off point, changing Shrek from an anti-hero to more of a reluctant hero, adding some characters, removing others, and fleshing out the book's minor characters, all while amplifying the way the book plays with traditional fairy tale narratives, aiming their sights at Disney in particular, whom Jeffrey Katzenberg still held a grudge against. Just as things seemed to be coming together, on December 18th, 1997, Chris Farley died of an overdose, leaving a massive hole in comedy and Shrek without a voice. Depending on the source, Chris Farley had already completed 1/3 to 80% to even 95% of his voice lines as Shrek. In the end, Mike Myers was brought on to replace Farley, and the entire movie was reworked around Myers' interpretation of Shrek, released in 2001, becoming the classic film we know today. A couple years after the release of the movie, in 2003, Alan Newworth released his book, Makin' Tunes. And in this book, he describes some of Shrek's early development, and mentions an early test animation that was so bad, it changed the direction of the film. So 2 years after the movie was released, we knew that there was a bad test animation, but that's really all we had. Our first full description of what actually went into the test would come in 2010 from Nicole Lepore's book, The Men Who Would Be King, documenting the rise of DreamWorks. In the test, Shrek was cartoony and exaggerated. When a bandit jumps down in front of him as he enters the castle gates, he picks him up and strangles him the way Homer Simpson might throttle Bart. As his grip bears down, his cheeks blow up Dizzy Gillespie style, and he turns a deep shade of purple. Shrek would have been voiced by Chris Farley at this time, and it's long been held that actor Tom Kenny would have voiced the Mugger. Over a decade after the film's release, we still didn't have a single image of the infamous test animation. But in 2014, that would change. That year, 2 listings were discovered, one on eBay and another on WorthPoint. Across the 2 listings, posted by animator Tim Lawrence, were a collection of clay models of Shrek and 2 VHS tapes of pre-production material from the movie, containing, among other things, 5 minutes of Chris Farley's performance as Shrek and the Lost test animation. Tim provides a description of the test that largely mirrors what we already know, adding that it was 45 seconds long and his copy is silent, but you can still lip read Shrek saying, "Bite me," at the end. And he also added one crucial detail, a detail that would go on to define the entire search. The Shrek test animation was set to the James Brown classic, "I Got You," better known as "I Feel Good." And on top of all that, the eBay listing contained 6 stills of the test. Our first look at what would go on to be called the Shrek I Feel Good test animation. Now that we know what Shrek looked like in this test, and confirmation that copies existed somewhere in the wild, things are starting to heat up. Based on this glimpse of early Shrek, we can see that the character design is more in line with the book. His hot knob is still on the top of his head, and he is much less charming than the Shrek we know and love. And let's be honest, this is straight nightmare fuel. This is what the Hat Man sees when he takes too much Benadryl. Moving forward a few years, the channel Uncle Sporkums came across a handful of storyboards from Chris Farley's Shrek on eBay, and in September 2017 posted them to YouTube. Based on what we knew at the time, it appeared that these storyboards were for the Shrek test animation, but with our current understanding, they do seem to be depicting the same scene from the test, though the storyboards are much further along in development, using dialogue we found in a second draft of the script. These were incredible finds, but Uncle Sporkums took things to the next level. He voiced the entire storyboards, and any others he could find. His rendition of the storyboards were about 2 minutes and 23 seconds, again proving that this was a version of the scene much more fleshed out than the 45-second test that we're looking for. But this is really where things stood for a long time. After years of being drip-fed bits and pieces, sometime in 2018, it just seemed to stop. We knew that it was out there, and people would bring it up from time to time, but the search seemed to have hit a dead end. For 4 years, nothing. Until July 30th, 2022, when Lost Media Wiki user Doofus Manboy made a strange discovery. A video titled Giant Reel from the Vimeo account AJLB. The video starts with a collage of animations, and in the mix is the partially obscured, sped up, high-definition version of the Shrek test animation. When slowed down and zoomed in on, we could see 31 frames, though partially obscured by other videos in the collage, and with no audio. Folks, this is our first video of the Shrek I Feel Good test animation. The channel AJLB belongs to Anders JL Beer, a pre-production animator on Shrek from 1996 to 1998, and his video had been online since 2015. And after this video was discovered, things got wild. If this had been sitting on the internet for years, there might be others just like it. It was a bit of a gold rush moment, and usually in situations where everyone is tracking down the same leads all at once, and there's so much going on, it's hard to single out individuals for their contributions. But in the mix, there were 2 that stood above the fray. Enter Accomplished World 823 and Hotter Cooler. The 2 would team up in the comment section of an August 9th post Accomplished World 823 made to Reddit about Doofus Manboy's discovery. By searching through the end credits of Shrek, they found the category Los Angeles Pre-Production. This seemed like their best bet at tracking down someone who worked on the test. Methodically, they researched each of the 60 names on the list, looking for a website, YouTube channel, Vimeo account, anything that might contain a frame of the Shrek test. Time after time, they ended up empty-handed. Things were starting to look a bit grim. But after going through 58 of the 60 names, on the 59th name, they got a hit. On August 14th, 2022, Accomplished World 823 posted the findings to Reddit. Our first 9 unobstructed seconds of the test. The 59th name in question was animator and leader of the Propeller Heads, Lauren Soman, the second to last name on the pre-production team. Sourcing the clips from Lauren's Vimeo and YouTube accounts, these were even older than the last find, posted in 2010 and 2011. For the rest of the year and into 2023, new Shrek discoveries were being made constantly. Some of these pertained to the test animation. Like in the DVD special features, fellow Lost Media YouTuber Scribbles to Screen discovered a brief clip of an animator working on the Shrek test, recognizing that hot knob anywhere that had been hiding in plain sight the whole time. But most of the other discoveries were just treasures of Shrek's early development. Doofus Manboy would return with more early storyboards, including a cut tavern scene and an early version of the Hallelujah scene. The Secret Life of Aliens found some clay models of Shrek from the Hester Studio website. Reddit user TN05 found some hilarious test animations from later in development, along with some new Chris Farley voice clips. Mr. Fruit found a color version of the movie's early logo. Bergenstein55 posted some concept art found from Christian Boyer's website. And Curve Infinite 5671 found models for cut characters. And all these were great, but not what we're looking for. And if you were there at the time, the wait was painful. We were so close. We had models, stills, clips, proof that copies existed. But slowly over 2023, things started to die down. Discoveries were not being made weekly, only occasional Reddit posts asking how things were going. After all that time and all that effort, all the animators contacted and all the leads pursued, it seemed like this might be the end. But again, things were heating up. On October 15th, 2023, NoWay5552 reported on Twitter that a Discord user going by the most suspicious name of all time, the Normal Guy 213, came across the website of animator Brian Drucker that contained 28 high-definition photos of the elusive test animation. This is really interesting because Brian Drucker is not listed in the pre-production credits of Shrek, which is why he's evaded the search for so long. The Normal Guy 213 came across Brian's website after watching the short film Los Gringos, a really odd short spaghetti western type film made by other DreamWorks employees, like the previously mentioned J.L. Beer and Rob Letterman, the latter of which would go on to direct Shark Tale and Detective Pikachu. And Los Gringos is a really interesting discovery in terms of this search. Like, you can kind of see that they use a similar animation style to the Shrek test. Though this is obviously a much more polished version of the animation, it kind of shows that this older version of Shrek using this animation might not have been as bad as it seems. And it's pretty funny that this led to the discovery of these images, because Los Gringos is one of the films right next to the Shrek test from under J.L. Beer's Vimeo, where we discovered our first video of the test. Again, another great discovery, showing us incredibly crisp images, but we weren't quite there yet. And then, it finally happened. Decades after the release of Shrek, and years of searching, it happened. On November 23rd, 2023, the Zoom Art Studio YouTube channel of animator Barry Jackson uploaded the entire Shrek I Feel Good test animation.
Give me your loot, fat boy. Ah, fight me.
A few days later, Barry held an interview about the test, conducted by Lori and Dylan. Links to their Instagram in the description. He was hired by DreamWorks in 1994 to work on the adaptation of Shrek, serving as production designer. DreamWorks were hoping for a lower budget film with dark undertones, like in the book. Barry, along with Michael Plug, came up with character designs, and their team made sculptures for reference, and combined this with motion capture for the character movements. Scans of these clay models were used for the facial animation. Barry thinks that the higher-ups at DreamWorks realized that the direction was too dark and needed it to be more accessible to a wider audience. So with this now found footage, there are a few small issues. In Barry Jackson's upload, the audio is poor, the video quality isn't great, and there's a skipped frame. Some have tried to fix these issues to mixed results. So there is hope that we can find a high-definition version, maybe one with better audio, in the future. We've always assumed that Chris Farley voiced Shrek in this test, and Tom Kenny voiced the Mugger. And maybe it's just me, or maybe it's the bad audio quality, but it doesn't really sound like either Farley or Kenny are voicing the characters. But while we were all celebrating this discovery, Shrek pre-production animator Jonathan Gibbs dropped a bomb. There's more than just this bit. When asked what he meant, he responded, "The test shown here is part of a longer test. If memory serves, it was most like 2 to 3 minutes long. They only did this one test before it was canceled." If this is true, this is a huge deal. We might just be scratching the surface of a much larger lost media mystery. I'm personally skeptical about this. Throughout the entire search, we have not seen any solid evidence that hints at a longer sequence. You'd think after all the stills we found, we would have found at least one from this longer version. It is possible that he's confusing this test with the storyboards from much later in development, or that they planned on making a longer version, but it was never finished. This discovery is something to be celebrated, marking the end of an amazing journey. But now, one question remains. Is the Shrek I Feel Good test animation completely found? Let me know your thoughts. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the go-to place to build your own custom website. Making a professional-looking website has never been easier. Squarespace offers an array of great professional-looking website templates, and with their fluid engine, utilizing drag-and-drop technology, these templates become infinitely customizable and fun to use, providing a solid foundation while never limiting you creatively. You can really just get lost messing around with all the things they have to offer. This can really be said about everything Squarespace has to offer. Storage is made simple with their new asset library, and setting up an online store could not be easier. They will take care of production, inventory, and shipping for you. I could go on, but you need to check it out for yourself. Head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your dream website or domain, go to squarespace.com/allthingslost to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Again, that's squarespace.com/allthingslost. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you think the test is completely found, and leave your suggestions for future videos. Thank you so much to all my Patreon supporters, including Vinny Cataldo, Miss Dana, Can You Say Rogo Mafleur, and Odesta Honeycrisp. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.